So what doesn't kill you does make you stronger. So you have to have a mindset of strength. And what the philosopher William Prescott said is, without temptation, you have no claim to virtue. So temptation is not your problem. Temptation is going to be there. The temptation to do all the wrong things for all the wrong reason all the time, it isn't going away. Mm-hmm. But what you have is the ability to step back from it and see it for what it is. And it will, listen, it could kill you. The problems of life can kill you, no doubt. But at the same time, if you start to choose differently about how you're going to deal with it, and really stepping back and not doing anything sometimes is so much power. There's so much power. See, because without that temptation, you don't get to choose who you want to be. Remember that. When adversity comes along, and I've been through plenty of hard times in my life, really hard times. I've survived over 100 cancer procedures. I have skin cancer. I've had it since I was very young. When I go in for a 2 or 3 hour surgery, I just have conversations with the doctor. I don't even notice it. Skin cancer has not killed me. I had melanoma, I think 10, 15 years ago. They took out a slice of a big half of an avocado of my shoulder for a thing the size of a freckle. Some people I know have died from melanoma. Didn't kill me. So thank God I'm still here so that I have these conversations with you, Michael, and people like you who are interested. The problem isn't the problem. It's how you deal with it. And if you have objectivity, if you understand that without this temptation, you have no claim to virtue, all these virtue signaling idiots out there who, save the whales, the climate, it's one thing after another. It's the stupid thing of the day, right? They all have their stupid virtue signaling issues, but the real issue is how are you going to deal with the next thing that comes along? And really just stepping back and being objective and letting it come to you in that moment, and then making a choice about who you want to be in that moment. That's who defines you in that moment. You define you in that moment, not the outcome, not the situation. You make the choice about who you want to be, right? Because I say this, is that either you, right now, most of us are the effect of some kind of cause that's happening to us. We're being the effect of that. But when you stop being the effect of a cause, and you're going to love this, you become the cause of an effect. So let's say, for example, many of us like to play tennis. And, they have those walls where you just practice up against the wall. It's a practice wall. The ball comes right back at you, and you keep hitting it up against the wall. You got to become, in a way, kind of a wall. So that when the ball hits you, it just bounces off of you. When that thing comes at you, it bounces off of you. I remember the movie Black Hawk Down. I'm sure you've seen that, where those guys were surrounded by the enemy. Mm-hmm. Many of them were being picked off. But the guys that survived, and I don't know if this is true, but at the end of the movie, they wanted to go back out and continue fighting after the hell that they had been through. They wanted to continue doing their job. So the circumstances do not define who you are. It's how you deal with them. And if you stop being the effect of a cause, you will be the cause of many amazing effects. And that rippling effect will change the lives of people you come in contact with. And that's part of your mission in this life, is to be a better example than the one that's being thrown at you with all the virtue signalers and all their nonsense and the crazy stuff. If you don't reflect that crazy stuff, you start to bring light into this world.
Become a member on Patreon to get full access to all exclusive content. A few of the perks is the full-length ad-free video version of the interviews, face-to-face interviews, bonus shows, and behind-the-scenes footage. You will also receive the video interview way in advance before the audio-only interview gets dropped on all platforms. Sign up and become a member today for only $3 a month. The link is in the description.
Welcome to Beyond Forbidden. Today on the show, I got David Masters. This is going to be a treat, an honor, a privilege. We're going to discuss a few of his books. He sent me a few of them, the Subconscious Mind and also Not of This World.
Super Conscious Mind.
Let me see. Super Conscious Mind.
Yeah.
Super Conscious Mind. And man, and the artwork.
Borderlands.
Yes. Well,
Borderlands.
actually, no, that's the one I was wanting to talk about. The Borderlands.
Yeah.
Borderlands and Not of This World. I was wanting to save the more
Not
of
this world.
Yes, but what I noticed. First off, welcome to the show, David.
Thanks for having me, man. It's a great honor to be here.
And secondly, I noticed, kind of skimming through some of your books, that they kind of interconnect. You know what I mean?
They all interconnect. I've written 17 books. Some of those are science fiction books, though, like Vampire Patriots. People would love that if they love science fiction. I'm a huge Matrix fan.
Mhm.
And so I wrote about, I had this idea after seeing the Twilight movies, that the vampire saga just kind of ended. Like, vampires can be redeemed. And that's the through line of my book, Vampire Patriots. They're all guys who are in the military, who don't want to suck blood just for the sake of sucking blood. So they've gone to work destroying terrorism. And they drink the victim's blood to find out what their next moves are. That's a pretty cool through line.
Oh, yeah. And it kind of, metaphors with what we're going through today. You got these parasitic vampires, that like to latch on to us. But we're just going to dive right into it, man. And during post, I'm going to probably cut out the lag time, what I'm about to show you. I want to screen share something.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Actor, as you're more like a medium. When you really get there, you go into this zone and you really divorce yourself of who you are, and you just become a garment that something else puts on. Now, a lot of people sit up there and do impersonations of other folks, instead of allowing that spirit, but I sit up and I'll pray for a little bit and go in a dark place, go in a bathroom, turn off the lights, look in the mirror. We'll have the light on at first, and then after 1 minute, turn the light off, and and search until you see your own glow, your own aura. And then you watch it change.
Wow.
And it's a scary thing because you'll feel like some hands are on you, and you lose a little bit of control of what you're doing. But, if you stay with it, you'll be inhabited by something, and then you walk out.
What do you think about that, David?
I've always thought that guy was out of his mind.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
This is what they do, David. And he's just he's just an actor. You know what I mean? And it makes you wonder, what are they doing in DC? The deep state, like the Illuminati, the top echelon on the global stage. You know what I mean?
Look, I understand this stuff. I just want to be clear. I have witnessed probably 150 to 200 exorcisms in my lifetime. And when a person opens themselves up like good old Terrence has, it's not acting. Something comes in, they're inviting it. And it is an entity that is waiting. He probably is, like, in my humble estimation, a demon hotel. He probably has multiple demons that are standing in line to take hold of him and do the psychobabble thing that he does. But see, the danger with that is that he's teaching people to astral project and all this kind of nonsense, and it's very dangerous. It should be clear that you should never do this. It's like messing with a Ouija board. Don't do that either. Stay away from that, because when you invite, what's to stop them from saying, hey, we got an open invitation in this world right now. Come on, let's go in. I have audio that I found from a hypnotist who took some people that were into the dark arts kind of thing, astral projection, all this stuff. And the hypnotist put them into a trance, and all of a sudden they saw all kinds of entities around them. Well, but see, hypnotism only works in one way. Well, first of all, you can be programmed for your entire lifetime to be open and suggestible to various kinds of input. But the other part of it is you have to relinquish your own will to some other influence. You have to allow or invite something to take you over, or for example, in a hypnotist situation, the hypnotist gives you post-hypnotic suggestions. He tells you what he's going to do, and then whether you follow them or not is your choice. But without allowing yourself to be influenced and suggestible, nothing can happen. And I've seen this happen where, in a crowd of 500 people, I'll just give you an example. The hypnotist will say to people in the audience, there are those of you out there, I want you to clasp your hands together, everybody in the audience, and squeeze them as hard as you can. Now, please don't do this, because I can't unhypnotize you if you do. So everybody in the audience will squeeze their hands together like, just like this, okay? And then the hypnotist will say, now some of you will be unable to release your fingers from being clasped together. And sure enough, there's probably 15 people in that audience of 500 people. That's the only suggestion that they need. You won't be able to unclasp your hands, okay? Those people become the subjects. And then the hypnotist can do anything he wants with them. And so a typical hypnotic demonstration would be people come up on stage, and the hypnotist will give them the post-hypnotic suggestion. He'll even tell them what he's going to do. He will say, I am going to put you in hypnotic trance, and when I start to tug on my tie, you're going to get the sensation that your shoes are on the wrong feet. And you're going to have this growing discomfort until you switch your shoes to the wrong feet. So he tells them. So he says, all right, fall asleep. And they all fall asleep. And suddenly, now he wakes them up, wake up. And here they're fidgeting, their feet are moving, and they want to put their shoes on the other foot. And so the first person that does it, he's the one that sets the stage for everybody else. And everybody else finally gives in and puts their shoes on the other feet. And everybody in the audience laughs, but it's not funny. It's real. Because they can't help but yield to that suggestion. They have to give in to that suggestion. And so hypnosis and mind control and possession are all related, because you can't be possessed. You cannot be taken over by a spirit unless you either consciously allow it or unconsciously allow it. Now, a lot of people unconsciously allow it. And if you have any questions, just jump right in, because you see, we are all primed, being primed. In other words, and I'll give you an example of priming. If you want to blow your nose, what do you think of?
Tissue, my nose.
Kleenex. Now, I've been branded my whole life with Kleenex tissue, right? I don't call it tissue. I call it Kleenex. Now, I've been branded by that, right? Branding is something they do with a post-hypnotic suggestion. They expose you thousands and thousands and thousands of times, right? Just like with toilet paper. The one that comes to my mind is Charmin. Why? Because they have the cute little bears and Enjoy the Go, and this is Charmin. And so you don't think, I think toilet paper, but I don't think Charmin, but if I was to think of a brand, it would be Charmin. You've been exposed thousands and thousands of times. Now, the military understands that the mind has no firewall. There's no way to keep this stuff from getting in. So this is the subconscious programming. These are the suggestions that are thousands and thousands. The average child, I think, watches 40,000 hours of TV by the time they're 17 or 18 years old. 40,000 hours, in which 20 minutes of that hour is taken up by commercial ads. So we are all programmed. Every single last one of us are programmed with various things, including everything from our culture. The minute you come into this world, your culture starts to program you. And so we have in our lives choices that we have to make about who we want to be and who we don't want to be. But if you think that it's your idea, if you really think that it's your idea that you are who you are, why do you want to change? You don't want to change. Even if things are not going well, even if things are not going right in your life, you still think it's because somehow these are choices that you're making, and really you're being directed.
And that's scary to think that, are my thoughts really my thoughts? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, is something else influencing my thoughts rather these, whatever it is, you could say these archonic type parasites or whatever from the other side. But to go along with what the, I guess you were talking about, on top of what Terrence Howard was talking about in your book,
Not of this world.
Not of this world.
Yeah.
You talk about something very fascinating, arc demons. And quote, and you said, quote, arc demons are believed to possess a heightened ability to project their influence, often aligning themselves with the compromised individuals in positions of influence. Through these alliances, they aim to orchestrate events that generate massive energetic releases. Such occurrences can stem from the propagation of fear and anger through conflicts of the exploitation of dark networks engaged in abhorrent practices like child exploitation for occult rituals. These malevolent entities thrive on attaching themselves to individuals who have willingly aligned with malevolent forces, drawn by promises of power and desires that transcend moral boundaries. Their cardinal rule is and desires that transcend moral. Let me see. I think I got off. Their cardinal rule is secrecy. They rarely reveal themselves to lesser individuals. However, there are instances where they openly manifest to those who have embraced darkness for their own ambitions. Man, end quote. So that's powerful, man.
Thank you. Look, we are all born, I think, with very few exceptions. Human beings are born with what we know as a conscience. Conscience. Now, interestingly enough, scientists are still trying to figure out what consciousness itself is. But without conscience, without the ability to be conscience driven, then we're nothing more than stimulus driven people. Mm-hmm. And if you look around, people are very impulse driven and they're very easily influenced. And this is why we have people that we call influencers. You're an influencer, but you're trying to influence people back toward reason and logic and life and truth. You're not trying to bring people down the dark path. You're trying
I want to influence people to make up their own mind.
Well, that's, you know what I mean? But see, giving people back to themselves is the opposite of enslaving them.
Right.
So making up your own mind, but you have to be able to have a connection to your own mind that allows you to reason and to say, wait a minute, hold on a minute. I got to check this out. I got to step back for a minute. I got to be objective as opposed to instantly giving in. And I got to tell you, most people do not realize when they're being influenced because they have this completely misguided idea that influence. And listen, I used to produce a Michael Savage show. You know who Michael Savage is?
Yep.
I produced that show for 11 years. During the bottom of the hour breaks, when he was talking about things, he would say to me, David, is there anything I missed? And I would say, okay, Michael, you made good points about this, but here is another point that you need to make. But as soon as I would make a suggestion to him and he thought it was a good idea, he would take ownership of it.
Oh, yeah.
Which is fine because that's what a good producer does. A good producer helps that person complete ideas, right? Or a good producer helps somebody see something that they might have missed, and then it's up to them what they do with it. So he would take complete ownership of it. I never, ever got credit for a lot of the great things that I helped him sort of flesh out and expand, right? But that's fine. But you see, if you understand that idea is that people are looking for ideas to complete biases, right? It's called confirmation bias. People are looking for ideas from external sources to complete confirmation biases. If that makes sense.
It does. Makes a lot of sense. And I want to go touch, because that arc demon that you talked about, you briefly talked about with a few pages.
Yeah.
It's a very fascinating concept, and you mentioned how they utilize networks of, that you said, quote, I think religious tyrants, and specialists to, pervert true doctrine and disrupt, the purposes of God. I'm just elaborating. I'm
right.
Paraphrasing things that you discussed.
Sure.
What made you come up with that concept more? I know you talked a little bit about it, but what made you come up with that concept? Because we need more new concepts to try to understand and cope with what exactly we're dealing with. And I did like how you worded everything within those couple pages, very, very spot on.
Oh, thank you. If we look at, there is the world is created in a balance between light and darkness, 12 hours a day, 12 hours a night. Everything within this created world that we can see has a balance in it. Well, most people have heard of archangels, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are higher up angels, and I do believe, and I've seen my angels, by the way. I saw them when I was 17 years old. They kept me from going out into the world and getting lost. They told me there's nothing out there for you. I've seen my angels. I've heard my angels. I've listened to my angels. I've also had my demons. I've seen my demons. I've heard my demons. I've listened to my demons. To my chagrin, to my great unhappiness, I listened to the dark side, and everybody does. And it's part of living. It's part of life. You listen to those suggestions, the whispers in the night. You listen to those people who are telling you to go the wrong way. The word commandment in the Bible means signpost. The 10 Commandments, go this way, don't go that way. So we're all receiving prompts, but let's talk about the dark side. Now, I'll give you a perfect example. I do believe that the Democrat candidate for president is possessed. And this is the problem that person has, is that when they are in the presence of other people, they're being observed. And what's in there is conscious that it is being observed through them. And it's got to be very careful that it doesn't have a meltdown like Tim Walz did with J.D. Vance. He got caught lying. And this is why she doesn't want to go out and do a lot of interviews, because even the interviewers are starting to reiterate the questions that she's not answering. She doesn't want to answer those questions because what's behind the answers is a dark force.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that most people actually don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about good and evil. They want to stay on the surface. That's
the main theme of this show. I would say the top 3 of the themes is there's a dark presence and there's a spiritual battle for the minds and souls of mankind.
Totally.
Rather it be ultra terrestrials, interdimensional entities, archonic paras. I don't know, but there's some type of dark malevolent force that
all of the above. Check those boxes. They're all there.
That's one of the main themes of this show. If anybody wants to know, that's one of the main themes of this show.
And it should be, by the way. I applaud you. I applaud you for having the courage and the insight to deal with it. A lot of people don't want to. They don't, because see, they'd rather go and watch a Freddy Chainsaw movie, because they can get up and go after 2 hours of being the crap scared out of them. They can get up and go home and go, oh, my life is so much better than that life that those people were living. By contrast, people like horror movies because they're kind of living in a horror movie, but their life, by contrast, is so much better than that horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
But we all feel a certain sense of horror. We when you see it, when you hear about children being sex trafficked, that's just pure demonic activity. The destruction of innocence is demonic activity. So these higher, I shouldn't say higher, I should say the archdemons, but they're on the higher scale of demonic power. You see, and I believe that the Harris is possessed. I believe that if you take a look at anybody in the Democrat side of things that's deep into democracy, I did a podcast called Demonic D's. Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
But they may not openly worship Satan, but there's a thing the Catholics have called remote cooperation with evil. And so if you're getting, let's say, medicines that are derived from stem cells, children's baby, aborted fetus stem cells, that is a remote cooperation with evil. Whether you realize it or not, you're injecting yourself with stuff that people were sacrificed to give you. I don't want anything like that in my life. I don't want anything that was derived from a human sacrifice being injected into me, period. I don't want to eat anything that is derived from any human experimentation. So the Democrats themselves, many of them are sort of just mindless people who are easily influenced. Their parents were Democrats. You know, their family go along to get along with other people. They don't want to be identified as being outside of the tribe. But for the most part, these demonic forces are very present. You can see it in people like Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. Gavin Newsom's evil. He just signed a bill that makes it a crime to ask for a voter ID. That means anybody can come from anywhere, it doesn't matter what their agenda is, and vote in the next election. That's how desperate they are, because the truth is starting to catch up. The truth, people are starting to love the truth more than they love the deception. And so these major demonic influencers, people like, let's say, Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris or any of the people that are in positions of power, by the way, there's an axiom, and that is that power corrupts. I don't see Donald Trump being a power broker. I see him being actually genuinely focused and caring about other people. He may be a bombastic person, his personality. And this is mostly what people don't like about him, is his personality. Okay, he's got a weird personality. Big deal. Is he going to make the place a better place to live? And that's the answer. The answer is yes. And even one of the people, Gordon Sondland, who was a guy who testified him in his impeachment, he was an impeachment witness the other day on the news, said, oh, no, things have gone too far. The Democrats are the existential threat, not Donald Trump. So I'm voting for Trump. He said that on MSNBC, I think it was, on the Ari Melber show. And they all started flipping out. It's like people are starting to wake up. Their minds are starting to open again, because pain is one of the greatest motivators that there is. And the pain, the economic pain, the fact that you bring children into the world, you have a young child now. Mm-hmm. You bring a child into the world, you want him to grow up and end up being a sex change victim? No, you don't. You want him to grow up and be a person that has character and moral upbringing and understands the difference between right and wrong. But you see these, like on the libs of TikTok, you see these people with their, you want to be a boy or a girl today? That's pure evil. That's called direct, what did I say? Remote cooperation, direct cooperation with evil. People that don't even think twice about encouraging somebody to go down the wrong path. And I'll tell you, I do believe in heaven and hell. I absolutely have seen it. I've seen heaven on earth. I've seen hell on earth.
And I still want to stay on because it's all interconnected with this dark presence.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. May get in a little bit with ET, whatever this force is. But I've seen a shift, over the years. Been doing research since 2006. After like a couple months, I woke up to like 9/11, like a couple months after I got back from basic training.
Yeah. And
I've seen a shift, and just doing research that, of course, you're going to have evil corrupt on both sides, left and right, but I've seen this shift where it used to be the war maniacs and just the evildoers and the more corruption. It seemed like it used to be more on the right back in the day. And then there was this shift to where, where the left was more anti-war, they used to be, and they seem to be more good. Like I said, there's always been corruption on both sides, but the openly presence that portrayed openly, but I just don't understand what happened over time with that shift. You know what I mean? It's almost like like you talking about these art demons. I don't know, these art demons or something has manifest within to this world. Is it because we create our own reality? Because they have these, you got to believe in the science, and they bring in people that believe in, a better world, a utopian type world, dystopian, transhuman world, and they go by those blueprints, and then we help manifest whether it be transgender, whatever it is, we help manifest their agendas into reality with the power of our mind. And you know what I mean? Like, I just don't understand. It's so much bullcrap that's happened over the years. I just don't understand what happened with the shift. It's almost like something has been guided one side or the other over the years, you know?
Yeah. The echo chamber of the mainstream media. And I don't know, I'm sure you've seen the compilations of the news presenters saying the same exact thing, but dozens and dozens of them at the same time, because they're all given the same talking points. So the influence of the world that we grow up in, and for example, why do we have culture anyway? Well, because we have people who develop certain ways of believing and living. And let's just look at the Chinese. They're no different, literally no different than Americans, except for their culture. And their culture requires of them something that the American culture doesn't, at least hadn't, and that is conformity. So Chinese people are extreme conformists because the government requires that for management and control. Now, do you think that we aren't headed in that direction? Well, we are. We're headed in that direction. That's why they started shadow banning people. That's why Facebook would shadow ban conservatives, because conservative ideas are individual ideas and Democrat ideas are collective ideas. And so the shift has taken place as people have started to awaken. Now, there was a time when the Democrats seemed to be for the working man and woman. They used to champion things in a different way, but this was 50 years ago. For the last 50 years, the Democrats have actually been an appendage of the deep left, the dark left, and more recently, in the last 20 years, the communist left. They really like the idea, and especially people in government, people who are in positions of controlling other people. They really, and you know, again, power is an aphrodisiac. There's a strange thing that happens to somebody. It's almost like being on drugs. And now Dick Cheney, he used to be vice president of the United States on the Republican side. Now he has endorsed Kamala Harris. The guy was never a conservative. His family were never conservatives, but they had the R in front of their name, but it didn't make them a conservative or a Republican, by the way. And I've been a Republican since I first got interested in politics when I was 17 years old, when Richard Nixon was impeached. Okay. So I've been a Republican my whole life because I had my father, who came from England, was a very conservative guy. And he showed me so many different ways in which I could understand the difference between right and wrong. Just by the way he lived and by his personal way of looking at the world. This is how we learn. So in China, you know, the supreme leader is basically your God. And in our country, God is our supreme leader. God, that's what it means to be a sovereign citizen. You answer first to God and then second to everybody else. But see, they're trying to take God away. They want us to become subject to the strongest influence. And that is another principle of hypnosis, hypnotic induction, is that I have a friend who is a hypnotist from Australia. And he was able to walk into a studio and identify a person who is suggestible. And again, the way you can tell who's suggestible is by the fawning. Oh, hi. Oh, hi. Oh, hi. And he would say, touch him on the shoulder, and he'd say, fall asleep, and they would fall asleep right there on the spot. So there's basically only two kinds of people: those who are suggestible, and they've been set up to be suggestible, and those who are objective to the suggestibility or the availability principle. They're not available. They say, wait a minute, hold on. Who the heck do you think you are? You're not going to tell me to go to sleep or wake up or do any other thing. That's me. When somebody tells me to hurry up, let's say, for example, if my wife says to me, come on, hurry up, I go, oh, something in me just naturally slows down. I just think, why are you trying to tell me to hurry up? Now, if there's a real reason to hurry up, okay, that's one thing. But hurry up over things that don't matter, I'm not going to. I can't. There's something in me that says, wait a minute, I don't want to be directed. I don't want anybody, including my wife, telling me what to do. And of course, if it's reasonable, then that's a different issue because, okay, let's get it done. But what's the point of hurrying up over something that doesn't matter? It is a kind of programming. Just saying. So these higher demonic forces, I'll go back to that. Gavin Newsom. Man, all you need to do is put some horns on that guy. He is a perfect representation of the devil. And I bet you there's somebody in every town, and I'm sure there's somebody in your town that you could say, oh yeah, that guy is a perfect representation of the devil, or that woman. Doesn't matter who it is. It's not a gender thing, by the way. It's a personality thing. How willing are they to participate in the direction of the dark side?
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned something earlier with film and or programming and things like that. So we know that predictive programming through films, and Hollywood have been subliminally imprinted upon our subconscious minds for decades. Is there a possible connection between, let's say, astrology and, because we know a lot of these elites, they have astrologers, and that's just one of their means that they use. But is there a possible connection between maybe astrology and showing all of this predictive programming through films of events that are yet to happen, in the future? It's almost like the elites of the world whom control Hollywood have a script at their disposal and a blueprint of how they want the future to be. Because I can't see any of this, David. It wouldn't work without some type of synchronistic connection with astrology. It's obvious that certain global elites are tapped into this heavenly cosmic toolbox and understand the mechanics of the nature of reality. It's almost like we can call these global elites the cosmic architects of sorcery,
Yeah, well, so I got to separate sorcery, because sorcery is definitely deep involvement in the dark arts, but astrology is, again, one of those, is the Catholic Church, and I'm not a Catholic, by the way, I'm a Christian, but the Catholic Church is identified as remote cooperation with evil. So, and I have a friend, not really a friend anymore. I got canceled by this friend of well over 30 years. I don't even know why. But I used to do a radio program with this woman. Actually, she is the producer of Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. And she has been into astrology ever since I can remember. And I always felt that was kind of weird, because this is a really highly intelligent person. And I do believe that astrology works on the same principle, which is it is a confirmation bias. In other words, we will always opt for what's given to us as long as it aligns with what we already want to believe, for whatever reason. And so already wanting to believe something has to do with ideas that we are being given and programmed with and primed with throughout the course of our life. And that can change, obviously, depending upon experiences that you have, emotional experiences. If somebody that you love suddenly dies, that can rock your world and change your perspective about a lot of things. It can change you. It can, like, for example, Trump getting shot. Mm-hmm. Talking a lot more about God these days than he was before. So it can shift whatever your priorities. It can shift your consciousness either up or down. Life experiences can shift who you are. And then you're already surrounded by influences that are there to rush in and give you that confirmation bias, whatever it may be. And so it's either from the light or from the darkness. The darkness is much more prevalent in our society. Evil is much more prevalent. And let's just put it to you this way. Music is a delivery system for ideas. Okay? So gospel music or praise music delivers you relationship with, God and puts God up high. And the rest of the music gives you a sense of relief and So remember that, and most people don't realize this, but emotion is the mother of all addiction. So let's say something terrible happens. You can see that a person that hates, I think it was 70% of all people surveyed hate their jobs. No wonder people end up in the bar. No wonder people go out and smoke during their breaks. No wonder people go and they indulge in overeating, because it is a temporary relief from the misery that everybody's living, right? So there's 1,000 ways, maybe 10,000 ways to escape from the pain that you're feeling. But there aren't really that many ways of getting, up above it. And that is so through God, through relationships with higher energies, with Christ, with a faith in something above you, and with patience, you can get above a lot of things that are really challenging. I just met a man that I've known for years. I was out walking, and he was walking his dog, and we started talking. Come to find out, he's got a rare brain tumor that only 300 are diagnosed every year. He may not live. But I said to him, are you going to be okay? He says, well, I have God. He says, so one way or another, I am going to be okay. Right? He says, I'm either going to recover from it, or I'm going to go, meet my maker. So if you think about it, the alternatives are very few in the realm of the light, because the light in and of itself is the remedy. Whatever facet of light that you are able to absorb and relate to in your life, that's the remedy. But everything else is a part of the problem. Everything.
I think people, they struggle, through addictions, depression, anxiety, because they know something deep down within their subconscious minds or conscious minds that, this is, like you mentioned, the matrix. It is like a matrix. This is like a rigged reality, that it's rigged into their favor. And because people are trapped, they're trapped by the almighty dollar. They have to put food on the table, put shelter for, a roof over their kids' heads. And they don't know how to escape it. And it's almost like these, back to what I meant was astrology. That was just really one tool, because going back, you have Aleister Crowley, one of the occultists, and L. Ron Hubbard, Jack Parsons, and that stuff is going on today. And it's almost like they are rigging. Are they using incantations and cult rituals to manifest things into this reality, to keep it a rigged system, to keep it almost like a prison without bars, to where we had the false illusion of freedom, but we know we're not truly free. We can't escape this rigged reality. So it's creating this tug of war within our minds, our hearts, our souls, and we don't know. And that's why we fall back to things like drug abuse and depression and or other things to try to escape. But it may not be the right means, the right methods to try to escape. We don't know how to escape this rigged system that we live in. But do you think that they are using things like that to manifest? You could call them these, I don't know, some of these elites that are practicing these occult rituals. Do you think that they use these dark satanic arts to manifest the reality that they want to within this?
As you know, what I mean? Yeah, I do. As you know, that Hitler had a group that was trying to unearth and to find every religious symbol, including
Spirit
the cup
Destiny.
The
Spirit of Destiny was one of them, right?
That's one of them, right?
Yeah.
And the cup that they gave Jesus, his last drink with.
Holy Grail.
The Holy Grail. They were trying to find those so that they could use the power of those in dark ways. And it was a group of people called the Ananurba. And they were really totally into Satan worship. They were just into Satan worship and orgies. And
I don't think that stuff stopped, though. I don't think that
it
stuff
has never stopped.
That stuff
look what happened with
today,
Diddy, with P. Diddy.
I know.
This is all satanic activity. and a lot of people were involved in it. Apparently, there was an attorney representing 100 people on one of the news channels who talked about it, and he's got 12,000 calls in 24 hours from people who had been affected by all the stuff that was going on in Diddy's world. But you know what's so weird about that is that was going on for 20 years and nobody said anything about it. And all of a sudden 12,000 people call and say, hey, I was involved with that. That's just probably the tip of that iceberg. But they're going to be going after the hotels and the catering services and the limousine drivers and all these people that were involved in facilitating all this madness. You think that it's any different in any other place of power? It isn't. P. Diddy is just the tip of that iceberg. What's below that is enormous. It's a huge, huge volume of people that are involved in the satanic dark side. No doubt about it. Now, going back to astrology, of course, it's just one of the devil's tools, in my opinion, to help to create the fulfillment of confirmation bias. As long as you are continuing to believe that there are answers in such things as astrology, anybody that understands the most basic cause and effect would look at that and go, wait a minute, that's not even me. Like, you know, your astrological sign. Now, again, going back to a place before Christ, people wanted some way to have a sense of assurance about where their lives were going and how things were going to turn out. So of course they had all these soothsayers and they had all of these sorcerers and people, you know, that were going to give them these false answers to make them feel reassured. But it's no different today, except for it's much more sophisticated. And then you add to all of this, and you were talking about economic pain. Listen, you have no control over what you are born into. That's not your control. And at a huge level, it's not your fault. No matter what happens to you under the care of your caretakers, it is not your fault. But there's a certain point in time at which you need to take ownership of your destiny. Because if you don't take ownership of your destiny, you're just going to keep blaming everybody else for what they've done. I mean, so for example, I read a statistic that 20%, or maybe it's more than that now, but 20% of people, blacks in this country, make over $50,000 a year. That's a pretty decent living, right? Those people simply, do you think that they were really just given affirmative action, or do you think that they were just, somebody just says, come here, I'm going to pay you $50,000? No, they worked hard to get it. Mm-hmm. They made choices about what they were going to do and what they weren't going to do. So we all have to make choices about what we want and what we don't want. And I call it the conscious process of elimination. Begin by eliminating what you don't want. Just sit down and make a list of 5 things that you don't want in your life anymore and start working toward those. Now, there's plenty of great philosophical teachers that help you achieve that. I think Jordan B. Peterson. I love Jordan Peterson. He's a brilliant man, and now he's moved in much more of a Christian direction. So he has his really in-depth psychology combined with Christianity, the best of both worlds, by the way. Helps you to identify what it is, how it is, and the direction to go and not go. And it's just that simple. But if a person cannot begin to differentiate between what is working and what isn't, there's no help for them. They're not going to rise out of the condition because they're making choices to continue being there. And this is the one thing that we have, believe it or not. Anybody that says they don't have a choice is not being honest. They do have a choice. They just have to exercise the right choice, because doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome isn't, it's a definition of insanity. People that do the same thing over and over again, just understand, stop doing something. Not even doing something. Just stop doing 5 things that you're doing that are sabotaging your future, your family, your life, your consciousness. That's all I would say. And
it kind of ties into a little bit, and I will be shifting a little bit back and forth, between the Borderlands book and also Not of This World. But this, you said within Borderlands, quote, the spiritual matrix, as discussed earlier, is the realm where divine control is most fully realized. In this matrix, God's will is perfectly enacted, and the spiritual realities that govern the universe are set into motion. The spiritual matrix is where divine ideas are formed and where the physical world finds its origins and ultimate purpose. Believers who align themselves with this matrix through faith and spiritual practice are essentially participating in divine control, becoming conduits of God's will in the material world. End quote. What if some of these elites are on the flip side of that, of the spiritual matrix, are actually conduits for this dark force? Is there a flip side of this, David?
Absolutely. 100%. Again, why am I a huge fan of the Matrix? Because the average person lives in a construct that is directed by an architect. Now, God, I call God the grand operational designer. God operates, and he is the designer of the entire reality, period. Now, but the flip side of that is that the sub-reality, just like the subatomic world, we don't see it at work. I got a microphone in front of me. It's composed of atoms. Those atoms are all being held in place by some force, right? The atomic structure of this has an invisible active force working on it to hold these things in place. The sub-world, the world below the surface, and again, as I say, it is evil that says there is no evil. There are people that say, "Oh, come on, there's no hell, there's no afterlife." My father-in-law, who died of cancer, really believed that up until the very last moment, where he said, "Wait a minute, I don't want to die. I want to live, because there's more. I have more in my life that I need to understand." It was too late for him. And so the substructure, even in a floor, there's a subfloor. The subfloor is what holds up the floor above it. And so in that sub world, and there's a great show on, I think it's A&E, called I Shouldn't Be Alive. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Mm-hmm.
What a great show that is.
Yeah.
It shows people that die and go to hell.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come face to face with why they were there. See, do it now. Come face to face with why your life is kind of a living hell right now, and change direction. That's what the word repent means. It means turn around, go another way, change the direction that you're going. Just step back for a moment and realize you keep doing the same thing over and over again. You keep allowing yourself to be influenced by the substructure of the world, by the below the surface structure of this world. And by the way, remember this, is that the scripture also talks about Satan being the king of the air. It's in the air. When you hear the whispers, when you get those nudges to go ahead and have that second or third piece of pie, when you're being kind of inwardly directed by something that you feel, you can have a sense of it, and it doesn't quite fit with what it is that you should be doing. Pay attention to that. That's one of my other books, called Pay Attention to Your Intuition. Now, I saved my son's life 35 years ago because I had a dream in which I was shown that I would run over him with my own car. And I almost did, except for in that dream, I did kill him. And I woke up crying from this dream. I thought, oh my God, I killed my son. And it bothered me so deeply, and I held on to that. 3 days later, the very thing that I dreamed literally came true, except for I knew exactly what I had to do. I grabbed him.
Guided, yeah.
Yeah, I was being guided. It was a premonition. So your premonitions will show you. I had a friend, he was working, he's in the movie business, and he was working with the actor Michael Douglas on The Jewel of the Nile. And so he's a storyboard artist, and they would plan the shots before they did them. And these guys came in a small, like a Cessna, a 4-seater, and they said, "Hey, we're going to go scout shots out here." And they said, "Come with me." And somebody said to him, "Don't go. Just stay here and keep working on the story with Michael Douglas." So the guys in the airplane took off without him, and they crashed and they all died. Something told him, don't get on that plane today. So if you're not listening, if you're not paying attention to your intuition, something's interfering with that. That intuition is from that other dimension that we're talking about, the dimension of light and truth and guidance and benevolence. See, God is a benevolent dictator. Yes, your life can be miserable, but there's reasons for misery. And if you examine the reasons for misery, if you say, okay, why am I so unhappy? Don't give yourself the answer. Wait to be shown. And something will pop up and it will show you, wait a minute, I got to stop doing this. It's more about stopping than starting, really.
And they use fear, with threats of World War III, nuclear war, how many people dying because of what happened in 2020. They fear, but
global warming,
that
fear,
everything.
It's insane, by the way. It's already been disproven.
Could that be like a firewall to keep us from becoming the conduit for God's will?
Oh, of course. Yeah, it's called fear management. Fear is a powerful motivator. Fear of rejection, fear of, what they call it, FOMO, fear of missing out. And fear is definitely, it's a very primal thing. Yeah, I mean, back in the Stone Age, we needed to be afraid of a lot of things because a lot of things could kill us. Not so much anymore, except for predators and psychopaths and sociopaths. You got to really keep an eye on people more than any other thing anymore, because most everybody can get food, except for if you're in North Carolina. But that's a failure of the government. That's a failure of the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the people above them. It's not the people who are there waiting to get their orders. It's the people above them who don't really give a crap, because they're fine. They're in their little comfy world of control. But fear is definitely a dangerous but at the same time a wonderful thing. There are people who have a condition in which they cannot feel, so that their nerve endings don't work, and if they cut themselves, they can bleed to death. So, pain and fear can be amazing tools for growth, but you have to understand. You have to interpret the meaning. You have to be able to say, why did this happen to me? When I was a teenager, I always got sick. Every 6 weeks, I had a cold or something happened to me. I had an accident. And by the time I was 18 years old, I started asking myself, what part am I playing in this? It wasn't just random stuff. I was at the wrong place at the wrong time for the wrong reason, and I shouldn't have been there. Or I was drinking too much, or I was doing something I shouldn't have been doing. And so when I stepped back and I asked myself, what role am I playing? A lot of it stopped just by asking that question. How am I involved in this, me being sick all the time because I was burning the candle at both ends? I was smoking pot and drinking and doing things that were just diminishing my capacity to be well. So when those things started to fall away automatically by themselves, I didn't have to struggle with them. And I stopped being so angry because I was an angry kid. Like a lot of people are angry. It doesn't do you any damn good. All it does is hurt you. It's like drinking poison and thinking it's going to kill the other guy. Not going to kill the other guy, although it could. It's going to kill you.
So we're talking about fear,
Yeah.
And I feel like that's one of the main weapons at their disposal. Well, first off, I feel like we all collectively kind of co-create this reality. You know what I mean? And they use fear through Hollywood, the media, to create this underlying doom or whatever, that's within our subconscious minds or whatever. And we outwardly project what kind of we're kind of like in the Matrix. We're feeding them the beast, the system, the elites, our energy, and we outwardly project, co-create all this doom and gloom that's going on in the world. I feel like they need us to outwardly project and co-create this reality for them to fulfill their agendas. So if we just quit buying into their BS and their fear programming, I feel like a lot of this chaos, this rigged reality, a lot of this doom and gloom wouldn't really exist. It's really us that is co-creating this this realm, this reality for satanic factions in the world today, you know?
Oh yeah. Listen, without your cooperation, um, without your cooperation, then it doesn't have any energy. Okay. So, in other words, you have to make a choice to be involved. And if you step back and become objective and look at it and see it for what it really is, and unfortunately, it's not easy for most people to do that because they're used to taking their cues from other people. And have you ever known somebody that was kind of a chameleon that they'd be one way around you by yourself, and then they'd get around another person and they'd start to try to reflect that other person, or try to get in with that other person. Everybody knows people like that where they're shapeshifters,
Mm-hmm.
and they want to shapeshift in order to get along with everybody,
Mm-hmm.
right? But so it's hard for people to stand alone, to be an individual, to be self-contained, because we're also used to having the influences of other people giving our life direction, meaning, and purpose. And this is so they capitalize on that. And the Solomon Asch conformity experiments, I'm not sure if you're familiar with those. Solomon Asch did these experiments back in the early 60s, in which he got people to give wrong answers on a simple test about the length of lines. And what they did was they brought in 6 participants and they paid 5 of them to give the wrong answer, so that the one person that gave the right answer was made to think that they were crazy, right? Because the other 6 were purposely trying to deceive that one person into believing that he was wrong. So conformity and fear are basically the same thing. If you are willing to conform for the sake of some security or for the sake of fitting in, then you're going to have a harder time finding your own direction in life and fulfilling the meaning that you could bring to this world, right? By being an individual. And this is, I think, one of the things that the left hates about Trump is because he is a nonconformist. Right? What do they do to nonconformists in the military? In a military style order, they make an example of the nonconformist because they need uniformity. So
they need a collective thought, no individuality.
That's it. That's right. Until they want you to think the way that would be beneficial for them. But really, that is another form of conformity itself, is to find ways to help them achieve their ends and their goals. Did you happen to see on Netflix the 3-body problem?
Yes.
Man, oh man, the beginning of that is just gut-wrenching.
Mm-hmm.
The communists have a guy on stage at a rally, and he's talking about Einstein's theories, and because God is a part of Einstein's theories, they kill him. They beat him to death on the stage, and the wife is standing there saying, "Yeah, you get what you deserve." Conformity and fear are the same things. Nobody would naturally conform unless there was something to lose.
Mm-hmm.
So you lose status, you lose position, you lose security. And recently, John Kerry came out and said, yeah, the First Amendment, it's in the way. Let's just get rid of the freedom of speech. It's just creating too many problems. Hillary Clinton wants to have people arrested for spreading information that could be comparable to what they call Russian disinformation. They want people criminally charged for spreading information that even appears to be Russian disinformation, so they call it. These are dangerous people. They are demonically possessed. And so they can use their human persona, they can use their voice and their human presence, but behind that, there's a dark force that's directing them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And a lot of it boils down to order followers. I must obey my orders. I'm not talking about just military or law enforcement, CIA, all the alphabet soup. Even down to your jobs. You must fulfill your task, whether it be, protesting against whatever, they can. If I do that, then I may lose my job, like the trucker protests,
Well, I can tell you from personal experience that I was recruited to work at, where Marshalls is, TJ Maxx.
Mm-hmm.
You know those stores.
Mm-hmm.
So I got recruited. A guy was leaving a position. My wife shopped in there, and then I went over there with her one day, and they said, this guy says, I want you to take my job. It was a customer service job. I said, really? Yeah. He said, I'm moving to North Carolina. And I guess he'd been there for many, many years, and he was a guy that would walk around and help people. And I have a very outgoing personality. So I said, sure, I'll do that. I mean, I wasn't doing anything. I'm semi-retired anyway. So I worked there for 3.5 months, and what these stores do is they allow theft. They allow the homeless people and the drug addicts to come in there, mingle among the shoppers with children, and then fill their backpacks full of stuff and walk out. I kind of had enough of it, of watching these people do this. And there was one guy that everybody was talking about on the walkie-talkies, on the PA system. This guy's full. He's got his backpack full of stuff. So I walked over to the door and I asked the guy, is there anything you want to show me in your backpack? That's all I said. I got fired for that. I got fired for it because the company policy is don't stop anybody from doing anything. Don't talk to them. Just pretend it's not happening. And by me asking him, if there's anything you want me to show you in the backpack there, that's it. He opened his backpack, showed it to me, had full of stuff in it. He walked out. I got fired. Now, I went to the state of Oregon and I said, I got fired for asking a question of a person that was stealing. They came back to me a month later and said, you did nothing wrong. So the company, this is an evil company, in my opinion. Sure, people get plenty of good deals in these companies, but part of their DEI, which is equity and inclusion and all this nonsense, is letting people steal. Letting people steal. It's terrible. And if you turn in an employee that's stealing at that company, you get $1,000 reward.
That's a microcosm of where we are
it's
today.
Crazy.
Yes.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And another microcosm, we keep hearing how everybody's waking up, especially since rather it be from 2020, whatever, there's more people who seem to be awake online. But I think that's, in a way, yes, they may seem to be awake on, let's say, on X, or they're your normal awakened keyboard warrior. But when it boils down to it, back to the fear thing, I feel like whenever we're bombarded with something else, whatever it is, war, nukes, another virus, whatever, are we really going to push back and say no? Because let's go back to the microcosm. Okay, traffic. Let's say you're in rush hour. It's crazy. I'm talking about people driving crazy, like, and always in a hurry, and they're cutting you off and giving you the middle finger and all this other BS. That's a chaotic environment. That's a microcosm to the macro. People act crazy. They act chaotic. They don't know. They're not their normal selves, as if you were that person that gave you the middle finger, and all these people just in a hurry, just cutting you off. And just if you just sat with them and talked with them, they seem cool, and they probably awakened to this. They can tell you, yeah, the government's doing this and blah 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 blah, and they seem to be awakened. But you put them in a stressful environment, let's say the micro, back to traffic and all that, just one little metaphor, they're still being controlled by, it's not real, I don't know if it's fear, but it's still that, you know what I mean? So imagine if on the macro, what happened in 2020 or anything, nukes, war, whatever, happens.
But
down the road, do you think that we will truly push back, or are we going to be like that micro of people in traffic that's just acting chaotic and crazy?
I got to tell you, the people in North Carolina are an example of the human race. In this country, anyway, in different countries may not be the same, but in this country, neighbors are helping neighbors. This is what we know. We know it, and people are taking their own helicopters there when the National Guard is not, and flying their own helicopters and rescuing people. And I'll tell you that we have a different kind of upbringing in this country. Yes, everybody still has a propensity to get freaked out by pressure and stress and fear. But at the same time, I want to just point to 9/11. The first responders ran to the buildings that were falling. They ran into those buildings. There's something about this country that is the light of the world.
Mhm.
And that's why they want to snuff us out. That's why the communist Chinese and the Russians want to snuff us out, because we are the light of the world. And we have the model of a world that works. And they want to flood us with all kinds of people from other countries that are murderers and child rapists. And, they've lost 325,000 children. And nobody in our government even blinks an eye. They want those people in the government want us to be snuffed out. They want to end this world as we know it. John Kerry, the First Amendment's in the way. Hillary Clinton, let's arrest people for going and spreading what they call disinformation that sounds like Russian propaganda. They want to snuff us out because we have a model of the world that works. And when we spread our model to the world becomes a better place. Communism has never worked anywhere it's ever been tried. It is a failed model.
They want to keep us from our truest and highest potential.
That's the truth, man.
But
that is the truth, Michael.
But on the flip side, and I don't mean to be pessimist, but daggum, man, because of the protest of the barges or whatever,
the longshoremen, yeah,
that you couldn't find toilet paper on the shelves. People, that's a micro, like I'm talking about. That's what I mean. Yeah. That's what I mean, David. It's like, yes, we have this loving spirit, this fighting spirit, but at the same time, we act irrational. Can't find freaking toilet paper because they're afraid. Back to the fear of the micro. Imagine a more macro fear being pushed down our throat. That's the trial by fire moment.
But see,
how will we act whenever that's
failed?
It
has failed, and because we have a different spirit now. So people will go out and get toilet paper because who wants to be without toilet paper? Okay,
that's a micro, fine. Though. That
right, and there's a kind of logic to saying, okay, let's go get toilet paper while there still is toilet paper. A lot of people then will be behind that curve, right? Because we've seen it happen before with baby formula and other things, right? And that is designed to create, though, a sense, like you say, a sense of worry and anticipation and fear. Oh, well, we're not going to have any food, so people go out and stock up on food. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reasonable side of fear, and then there's an unreasonable side of fear. But objectively, there's a goodness. There's more goodness in the people of this country. Naturally, it's innate. It's already there. And what they want to do is they want to rob us of our humanity.
Exactly.
By threatening us, by making us worry that again, the First Amendment, why is it the First Amendment? It's the First Amendment because it's the most important, right? And the Second Amendment, the right to defend that's the second most important thing, to be able to defend yourself. They're trying to take away both those things. If you take that away, you've just got communist wherever. You got communist China, you got communist, and I think Russia's even, in some ways, Russia has more. They're trying to pay people to have children now. We're trying to pay people to kill their babies in this country, and they want to pay people to have babies over there in Russia. So who's going to survive? Who? And Elon Musk, he came out and said, hold on a second. Elon Musk said people are not having enough children because the population is graying out. A lot of people are going to end up, leaving this world as they get older, the graying of the population. So we need people to come into this world and continue the wonderful work that the founding fathers and mothers did back, 250 years ago to get to we see these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and they're endowed by certain rights by their creator. That's what we need. We want to perpetuate that. They want to put an end to it. So fear is just one of the tools in their tool belt. Global warming failed. Nobody believes in it anymore. It's obvious. I heard 50 years ago that the oceans were going to rise. Hasn't happened. Hasn't happened. My folks lived in a house that had a boat in the backyard. It's still exactly as it was 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying, fear only works if you buy into it. And fear works if there's a legitimate reason for it, right? If a hurricane's coming, stupid people say, I'm going to ride it out. And then they can lose their lives. So I'm just saying, fear is a tool, but it was built into us by our creator to give us an advantage over predators and situational problems so that we can have that fight or flight. But they want to take away our ability to fight and put us in a state of perpetual flight.
Mm-hmm. A perpetual state of fight or flight mode. And like we said, I don't know if it's the beginning or right before we recorded, that there is, well, first off, what you said, that the spark of humanity is probably better than it's probably ever has been before, even though we're being attacked on all levels, and this, like I said, this is our trial by fire moment. And there's this spiritual war, that's going on behind the scenes. That's been probably in the works, David, for thousands of years. This unseen force, they're putting all cards on the table, all the card, and this force is no longer in a perpetual war state of mind frame. This force is attacking us on all fronts and is in a sprint mode to the finish line to fulfill their satanic agendas. The question is, how will we react down the road? You know what I mean?
Listen, the greatest teacher, the greatest man that ever lived made it very simple. Know the truth and it shall make you free. And so truth is the antidote. It's like if you get bit by a snake, you need anti-venom. If you get deceived by lies, you need truth. And so truth really does, it's like the Swiss Army knife of reality. There's a tool in there, in truth, for everything that plagues you. And you've got to be able to step back a little bit and ask yourself, like you said, am I thinking my own thoughts? Most people, they really do believe that they are, but when you step back just far enough from all the stuff that's coming in, you begin to realize, wait a minute, how many times have I heard that message? How many times have they put that in my head so that they make me think that I'm really thinking that thought, that it's really my thought? Most of the thoughts that we have are not our own thoughts. That's the truth. And I wrote a book about it called The Present. It's all about the power of mindfulness. And because becoming mindful means it doesn't mean getting rid of thinking. It means learning how to step back from it far enough to see where the thinking is coming from and why it's there. Because let me just put it to you this way. You got a channel changer for your TV, right?
A what? Yes.
Okay, so I like to watch YouTube. I like to watch documentaries on YouTube. I might scroll through 30 or 40 different potential things that I could watch until I get to one that I want. If you have the ability to scroll through your thoughts and eliminate the ones, go past the ones you don't want, until you land on the one you do want, that's basically what mindfulness allows you to do, meditation. It allows you to step back far enough, be objective to, you're not going to get rid of the thoughts, but you're going to be able to select from the ones that make sense and get rid of the ones that don't. Mm-hmm. It's that simple. And I started meditating when I was 17 years old. I almost died 3 times in 3 various accidents. I thought to myself, I can't live this way anymore. I'm only 17 years old. I got nothing left to give. I mean, I was constantly in the hospital, constantly in pain. And so finally, one day I'm surfing. I had this voice warn me this day. This is another intuition I should have paid attention to. I pull up at my favorite surf spot. There's nobody there. The waves are good. I'm going to go surfing. And something says to me, it wasn't a voice, it was a knowing, don't go out today. And I thought to myself, where did that come from? Don't go out today. And I said, you know what? Go to hell. I'm going to go surfing. And I told it to go to hell. I told that conscience, that intuition to go to hell. And I paid the price for it. So I'm laying there on the beach. I don't even know how I washed up in the shallow water. I had a punctured lung. And I'm laying there and I'm thinking, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to live this way anymore. It's too painful. And I looked up into the sky and I said, God, I'd rather be dead than go on living this way. I was totally committed to changing at that moment. Just right before I was 18 years old. And that was when my journey began. So I started this meditation exercise called Be Still and Know. As a matter of fact, I have a version that I voiced on my website at escapeyourmindsprison.com. And people can go there and listen to it every single day if they want to. It's about 15 minutes. And all it does is help you to learn how to step back, get out of the thought stream. Doesn't mean the thoughts go away, but what it means is you're not entangled with the thoughts. And then you begin to discover who you really are. You're not the thoughts. You're the observer of the thoughts. And if you want to think certain thoughts, you get to choose what thoughts you think, and you get to eliminate the ones you don't want that aren't working. So I've been doing that since I was 18 years old, and well over 50 years.
So to round things up for this time, David, so with all the dark information, that you uncovered about the influence of whatever this force is, demonic force, and the spiritual warfare raging around us, how do you maintain, I know you discussed a little bit, but the floor is yours, but how do you maintain hope and a sense of purpose in the face of such adversity? What advice would you offer to other listeners who may be feeling overwhelmed by the gravity of these revelations and the bombardment of this evil that we face today and we may be facing going forward?
To use a wonderful visual example, have you ever seen the movie Conan the Barbarian?
Mm-hmm.
Remember in the beginning of that story how he's pushing a millstone with probably 6 other men, and then it shows time passing, and over the years all these men passed away, and he was the last one standing, and he was this hulk of a man. See, so what doesn't kill you does make you stronger. So you have to have a mindset of strength. And what the philosopher William Prescott said is, without temptation, you have no claim to virtue. So temptation is not your problem. Temptation is going to be there. The temptation to do all the wrong things for all the wrong reason all the time, it isn't going away. Mm-hmm. But what you have is the ability to step back from it and see it for what it is. And it will, listen, it could kill you. The problems of life can kill you, no doubt. But at the same time, if you start to choose differently about how you're going to deal with it, and really stepping back and not doing anything sometimes is so much power. There's so much power. See, because without that temptation, you don't get to choose who you want to be. Remember that. When adversity comes along, and I've been through plenty of hard times in my life, really hard times. I've survived over 100 cancer procedures. I have skin cancer. I've had it since I was very young. When I go in for a 2 or 3 hour surgery, I just have conversations with the doctor. I don't even notice it. Skin cancer has not killed me. I had melanoma, I think 10, 15 years ago. They took out a slice of a big half of an avocado of my shoulder for a thing the size of a freckle. Some people I know have died from melanoma. Didn't kill me. So thank God I'm still here so that I have these conversations with you, Michael, and people like you who are interested. The problem isn't the problem. It's how you deal with it. And if you have objectivity, if you understand that without this temptation, you have no claim to virtue, all these virtue signaling idiots out there who, save the whales. Oh, the climate. Oh, it's one thing after another. It's the stupid thing of the day, right? They all have their stupid virtue signaling issues, but the real issue is how you're going to deal with the next thing that comes along, and really just stepping back and being objective and letting it come to you in that moment, and then making a choice about who you want to be in that moment. That's who defines you in that moment. You define you in that moment, not the outcome, not the situation. You make the choice about who you want to be, right? Because I say this, is that either you, right now, most of us are the effect of some kind of cause that's happening to us. We're being the effect of that. But when you stop being the effect of a cause, and you're going to love this, you become the cause of an effect. So let's say, for example, many of us like to play tennis. And, they have those walls where you just practice up against the wall. It's a practice wall. The ball comes right back at you, and you keep hitting it up against the wall. You got to become, in a way, kind of a wall, so that when the ball hits you, it just bounces off of you. When that thing comes at you, it bounces off of you. I remember the movie Black Hawk Down. I'm sure you've seen that, where those guys were surrounded by the enemy. Mm-hmm. Many of them were being picked off, but the guys that survived, and I don't know if this is true, but at the end of the movie, they wanted to go back out and continue fighting after the hell that they had been through. They wanted to continue doing their job. So the circumstances do not define who you are. It's how you deal with them. And if you stop being the effect of a cause, you will be the cause of many amazing effects. And that rippling effect will change the lives of people you come in contact with. And that's part of your mission in this life, is to be a better example than the one that's being thrown at you with all the virtue signalers and all their nonsense and the crazy stuff. If you don't reflect that crazy stuff, you start to bring light into this world. Just saying.
Well, man, that was definitely one of the most powerful endings of the show, statements, and that'll probably be one of the intros part in the beginning. But man, this was definitely a treat, honor, a privilege. Thank you very much, David. Had a blast, and look forward to get you back down the road, man.
Michael, you are a true brother.
Brother from another mother.
Thank you.